In this video, I want to talk about the annotated bibliography assignment. I'm also calling it the review of literature assignment, and sometimes those two things are not the same, but for this class, let's treat them as they are, all right? So for the review of literature assignment, the annotated bibliography, you need to pick 4 sources that you found in all your research that you think are really important sources about that topic. All right. Now that's the main criteria here. These sources have to be what's known as major voices. All right. So it's these sources are not necessarily the sources you might be using in your paper. You may or you may not. As you think through things, and maybe at the end, in your capstone paper, your persuasive paper, your the one that we're using the research to build towards. We can also call that the policy paper. For this class, it's called the capstone. But that paper, you will need to use the information that you've researched, and you come up with an action or a policy or advice or an opinion or a conclusion, an analysis that is unique to you. So we're now moving into this notion of voice. Okay. Now, you've just finished a research paper that actually has had little voice in it or no voice, because that paper was just trying to give an overview of the important facts and concepts and ideas or whatnot that's been accepted as the makeup of this topic, or this thing that's out there. You research this. This is what you need to know about it. It's like the nuts and bolts of it. It's just the data, the facts, the information about it, right? So there was nothing there that people were saying, well, this is what it means. This is why it's good or bad. If this, then that, and if that, then we need to act a certain way. Now that's actually really what the policy paper is. It's sort of a, if this, and you're using information there, then it means that, and then you're drawing conclusions, or you're pointing to things, how someone's going to turn out, or how this business is going to end, or where this is going to lead us as a nation, or as a certain group, as an organization. It could be about a business, or about a school, or about a church, or about, whatever. The information means that, if this, then that. And if that, if this is actually going to be the case, then we need to act towards this. We need to think, we need to have certain adjustments now, that's your policy paper, if this, then that, and if that, then how do we act? How do we value this? How do we think about it? How can we change? And you're going to need to write that as the main essay, the culminating essay of the class. A little bit of a timeout here. That's why from the very beginning, I was hoping many of you would stay with the same topic and just let it build, because it's going to make this last major essay so much easier to write. You've already got it basically 3/4 of the way written, okay? But the research paper had no voice because it didn't have some sort of original observation, analysis, evaluation, policy, plan that you came up with. You see what I'm saying? The research paper, informational research paper, just used information. It just presented the facts of the matter, right? But this last version of your work, the capstone, is going to take those facts. You need to arrange them now into sort of an argument. That means just a persuasive line of reasoning. That is supporting some sort of major thesis or conclusion or policy or idea that you have. Okay. Now that's called your voice. Okay. And voice in writing always refers to something unique to the author, whether it's a unique view or a unique way of writing, a unique expression. Sometimes authors have both. They're very powerful. But voice is something that if that author disappears, that element goes with it. You see what I'm saying? That person owns that idea, that thought, in the sense that you own it if you came up with it on your own. Now, it's very hard to be original in this world, and you don't truly have to be like the only one that ever thought about it. But if you really do feel like you have a certain angle, a certain insight, a certain observation that, as far as you can tell, no one else has made it exactly that, has thought of it exactly that way or whatnot, that's your voice, okay? And you need to have voice in your last major essay, the capstone. Well, going back to the review of lit, what I want you to do here for the review of lit, and by that we mean as you review the literature on your topic, the act of reviewing what other people have said about what you're writing, okay? That's all it means. I want you to find 4 of those sources that you think actually have major voice. In other words, they really had something unique and original to say about it. Maybe they did a study and they came up with a conclusion of the actual information, and the data might not, might eventually be shared knowledge, but their conclusion is unique. Or they have a certain unique definition that no one else came up with. They did, and now other people might be using that definition, but they're the ones that came up with it. So there's a couple ways you can have voice here, but what's important for you as a reader and as a thinker in college with the academic work that's around you is that academic writing really does center around voice. People are trying to present unique, contributing ideas, right? Or concepts, or analyses, theses, and what I want you to do now is look back in your research and see if you've run across any article or website or documentary or book or film that has that sort of impact. It's had that sort of impact on your, on your topic. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'll give you two. I'll give you 2 examples. Okay. When it comes to studying the environment, and the way modern industry has affected the environment, okay, there's a classic out there. I mean, this is one of the first books that try to address this and discuss this. It's called The Silent Spring. Oh, I can't remember the name of the author. Oh man, I can't remember. I can't remember her name, but the book is called The Silent Spring, and that's just a famous book. I mean, that was really at the beginning. It was the book that sort of brought this to people's attention, right? All right, so I have a couple more examples. If you want to look at the way the processed food that we eat, especially the meat industry, oh my goodness! If you love hot dogs, every now and then I love a good hot dog, right? But then you go and you research what goes into the hot dog and how it's made, you might not ever eat a hot dog again. So when we're talking about research on food processing, especially meat, there's a very famous book that was very influential, Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. An incredible expose of the meat packing industry in Chicago at the turn of the century, the 20th century. Now, Sinclair did not really think he had a huge communistic sympathies, and he was trying to advocate for a more equitable spreading of the wealth through government means. But and so he was using the poor as they worked in Chicago. Many of them worked in the meat industry, so this became part of his book as he was trying to do something else. But that's what the American public was shocked by, and so if you're studying food processing and all of that, you need to read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. It's just, now you don't have to have all this knowledge already in you. You just have to be able first to recognize voice, but then to also see how people and sources that you're looking at, how they refer to this book. You might be researching something, you might be watching a website or a documentary, and already 2 or 3 times different people have referred to a certain documentary or a certain book. Okay, if you're studying nutrition, if it's fast food, okay, then one of the major voices there is the documentary Fast Food Nation. Well, also Super Size Me. That made a huge splash. Okay, so that's voice. That's a major voice in that arena. And then so that's where we're going with this. Okay, now um, what's important to understand is I want you to understand what I'm asking you to give me. I'm not asking you to give me the sources that you know you're going to use in your paper. I'm asking you to find the sources out there that have had a big impact on your topic recently. People are listening to this study or this organization or this person because this person has some new insight or some new this person has a contribution that is relevant and powerful, and people are clustering around it because they recognize that. And this person is beginning to shape a little bit, where the thought is going about this matter, and thus where the action is eventually going to go. That's voice. And if you can recognize it, you can begin to see those pieces. Again, they could be documentaries, they could be books, they could be it could be a series, like a streaming series, or it could be a series in a magazine or a newspaper. It could be a person. A person could be. Now they're all made by people, right? But there might be a certain person that consistently is shaping how people think because of their podcast or whatever. So it might not be like one podcast, but it could be this source of thought and of ideas is a voice in this research or this topic that you've chosen. Okay, so please understand that the only way that you're really learning about your topic in any serious way is through the books and through the text that you get involved with. Now the text again could be documentaries, books, podcasts, websites, film, magazines, journal articles. All of those are texts. And you have to learn how to find the good ones that are solid, consistently giving you fair and correct information. That's why sourcing, man, you got to figure out, well, where is this thing coming from? Is this a good source or a weak source? And you might have a lot of experiential knowledge, like you might have actually gone through this disease or this event, all right? But that's for a memoir. That's for a short, piece that is not necessarily built on research. When you're talking about how you have been affected by something, that's not research. That's just sharing an experience. You realize that you could be very different from how other people would go through that. You see what I'm saying? So you cannot view yourself as sort of representative of a group that hasn't been shown yet. You might actually be representative of a group, but you have to show that by a survey or by showing how you can be trusted to speak for the group. You can't just assume that. So a lot of times students try to bring personal experience into the research paper, and frankly, there's really no place for it except maybe for an intro or a conclusion, all right? But it's not really ever going to be accepted as proof, as any sort of serious support. We can, as individuals, we can be so often either wrong about our experiences or we could be outliers. An outlier is an instance of something that's like separated from the statistical center. The most students are going to have, a decent time at college. Most are going to grow, but there could always be outliers that it just never worked for them. Or that's bad. That's a bad example. But you could be the outlier. So don't trust your personal experience here to be research material. Okay. You need to go and you're learning your topic through the texts that are out there, not through the way you've experienced life. Although that might have made you very interested in the topic, and that might make you very much committed to it. But that's not going to be accepted as some sort of evidence that's going to have convincing power, right? Because the numbers are too small. You're just one person, right? So it's very important that you understand for academic work, you really learn your topic through the text you get involved with. And when you get involved with those texts, you're going to see that there are some leaders of that pack, if you will, that have such a strong impact of how the other texts have been developed. They're shaping people's ideas and they're standing as in sort of an important group of their own. Right, original thinkers, if you will, or very very important essays or articles, right? So That is what goes into a review of literature, and that is what those sources are what I want you to try to find and use for the annotated bibliography. Now, there'll be another video or another set of instruction information about how to do the annotated essay, the annotated bibliography. You can just look it up online. What is an annotated bibliography? Boom, here's 50 examples that are just like, choose any one of them, okay? Part of me is wondering why I'm still doing these videos, because if you just ask AI, they're going to give you great. Ask Google, ask your favorite AI chatbot. It's going to show you what an annotated bib is. It's going to explain it to you. It's going to give you tons of examples. Now, then you go write it on your own, but you've learned. What do you need my video for? So, I understand that. But anyway, ask AI what an annotated bib is, and you'll get your answers. I want you to find the right sources to put in it. And please understand that you might be using some of these sources in your final paper, but you don't have to. I'm not asking you to write the final paper already and then explain to me what some of the sources you used are in the annotated bib. That's kind of doing it backwards, okay? Well, I want you to kind of not worry right now about what you're writing. You need to know the topic and all that, of course, but you don't. I don't want you to worry about how you're going to work in the sources and you're actually writing. Right now, your job is just to find the thought leaders, the very important pieces, the ones that have genuine voice. See if you can understand the concept and go find them, and then you summarize them and put them into an assignment that you sent to me. That's the annotated bib. That's the review of lit. Once you do that, you may or may not use those in your paper. You don't have to use every one of those in your paper. We're doing something different here. Okay, right here, I just want you to tell me if you can understand where the main ideas are, where the main observations or theses are of the research that's done on this topic. Okay, so I know I've gone on and on, but it's pretty. If you can get the concept of voice, you really have moved a good distance into understanding academic writing. So I hope this video has helped, and I appreciate the attention that some of you are giving these. I hope more than some. Thank you for watching. Okay.